Well, we're back, folks. A return to the puniverse. I'll say this about the puniverse. Blood and Honey 2 was significantly better than the first. I think they learned from a lot of the mistakes, even though I still wouldn't say it's a good movie. But I see what they're trying to do, all these spin-offs, these childhood characters, and now you've got Peter Pan, a story that could absolutely take a demented turn. So it's kind of perfect.
Wakey, wakey. Peekaboo.
How did you get down there?
I'm Peter.
So Wendy, darling, strikes out in an attempt to rescue her brother Michael from the clutches of evil Peter Pan. Along the way, she meets Tinkerbell, who will be seen taking heroin, believing that it's pixie dust. So this is obviously rated R, very gruesome and violent, and it's directed by Scott Chambers, who is Christopher Robin in this universe. So that's interesting in itself. And you know, I've always seen Peter Pan as a story that is sweet and fun and adventurous, but if you tweaked like two things with it, it could become nightmare fuel. So when I saw they were doing this and apparently making Peter Pan one of the main villains in the Puniverse, I was like, that's interesting. How are they going to do this? What's Peter Pan going to look like? That's obviously why you're here, to learn about this new slasher icon. Is Peter Pan, are we putting him in Art the Clown territory? Not yet. Hold your horses on that one. I do think Peter Pan looks creepy, evil, a little bit like a crackhead, but he's taking kids to Neverland, aka it's kind of like the underworld, and they're trying to make this as grounded as possible without it actually being grounded. And so there are some interesting things that they do with the story that at times had me sitting back going, I don't know if this movie knows exactly what it wants to be tonally, pacing-wise, but Peter Pan himself is as creepy as you want him to be. The scene where he gets on a bus full of kids and you're just like, that guy, nobody go with that guy. Kids, stay away from that guy. Now, here's one of the issues we run into, is that you don't really get to know that much about him. And you could say that for a lot of slasher icons, but there's always a scene or a moment or an interaction to where you get a little bit of that character development without spelling it out for the audience. Or some slasher movies just spell it out entirely. Usually I don't like those. But with Peter Pan, you never really get any of that. He's just kind of this slasher figure that you don't know much about, which is cool in its own way. But my question is, while I was watching, there's nothing? Like, we spent a lot of time with Wendy. There are plenty of scenes and sequences with a ton of violence and gore, brutality, and a lot of it directed towards kids. So if that's something, like I often see in the comment section of these horror reviews, is Austin, they went after a kid in this movie. I can't stand seeing something happen to a child. And as a new parent, I get that. And that freaks me out, and usually I don't like to see it. Now, in something like a Peter Pan turning evil and taking kids to this version of the underworld, you're going to get a lot of violence against kids. And so if that's something you're scared of, probably shouldn't watch this movie. I get it. I don't love the concept of it, but I thought it was executed, pun intended, very well. That's what I will say here. The violence and the gore for an extremely low-budgeted movie, which I think has a lot higher of a budget than the first Blood and Honey, and you can tell, right? That first Blood and Honey, man, the production design and the costumes, there's just so many elements of it that just looked off or straight up bad. With Peter Pan and this version of Tinkerbell, who's kind of just a junkie, so she's just a bum. No, she's taking heroin in the movie and she thinks it's pixie dust. And so I'm like, that's an interesting spin on Tinkerbell. Like, what were they going to do with this version of Tinkerbell? And that's the thing about this concept, right? Conceptually, regardless of where they take it in the future of the Puniverse, this is something that kind of had to be done. To take Peter Pan, make him a slasher figure, and that's awesome. But with the execution of what we're getting in this movie, the gore is fun. Some of the murders, they are brutal. Some things that we see are interesting enough, but it's like coming off of a year where we had Terrifier 3 and so many great horror movies last year and so many great bloody, gruesome horror movies. It's just, we've seen this a lot. And unless you do something truly special or game-changing, like even in a film like In a Violent Nature last year, a movie that I did not like, there was a kill in there that I had never seen before. I thought about a long time after the movie was over, and it freaked me out. There's not really one in here that's going to linger after the movie ends. That's going to stick with me. I'm like, oh man, that's definitely something. No, it's like, it's just kind of on repeat. We're seeing the exact same things play out in different context. This time it's Peter Pan. Okay, cool. But you've got to make the story a little more interesting. You've got to make Wendy more of an interesting character. Is she the final girl that we deserve? Like, are they trying to mold her, shape her into that? Or is it more so she's just the one we're spending time with, trying to go and warn the kids of their impending doom because of what she's already been through? Now, it needed a re-edit. The way this is edited together felt off because there are times where we spend so much time between two characters, or we're there, it felt like a scene should have ended 30 seconds ago, but we're still there for some reason. And then we cut away, the pacing speeds up, we're getting into the violence and the action, and then we slow down once again. I just felt that way throughout this entire movie. And if you're trying to think of this as some kind of slasher that could slowly become a cult classic, a lot of cult classics have this pacing to them, or have this sense of impending doom, or they just keep you on your toes the entire time. I can't say that about Neverland Nightmare because I wasn't really on my toes the entire time. When I was, it was fun, but I didn't really care about the characters involved, and you don't really know that much about Peter Pan to make him interesting. Beyond that, the kills that he's providing the audience aren't special enough for me to single them out and say, wow, that is unique. There's nothing unique about Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, and I just really wanted that to be the case because, again, on paper, this is a great idea. Not all of the performances are great, but with a movie like this, I'm not going to sit here and expect Oscar-worthy performances from the cast. And there's a lot of time spent with the family tension that we're dealing with here. Peter Pan's not even in, I almost said Peter Parker.
Stings, doesn't.
Peter Pan is not even in the picture, and it's just these scenes between family members, and those are the scenes that I'm talking about. It's just like they linger way too long, and then we cut away, and the pacing starts to pick up. Okay, I'm interested once again, but they continued. It's like a roller coaster of pacing, in that not emotions, but of pacing in this film, and that seemed to be an issue all throughout the movie. So, am I going to have to rank the Puniverse films? Let me know if you'd like that. Leave a like if you want me to rank the Puniverse. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, this feels like the appropriate story to spin and take in a demented direction. While the brutality is often entertaining, there are immense tonal and pacing issues that may keep it from becoming an eventual cult slasher classic. I mean, issues all throughout. And as you can tell, I'm not as pissed off as I was after the first Blood Money, but it just didn't work for me, man. I just didn't come together in the way that I had hoped. Not that I expected this to be The Godfather. All right, thanks. What is your Neverland Nightmare?